everybody. It's Judi, and I just wanted to say welcome back to the Smarty Plants Podcast. We are so happy that you're listening. Today, we are actually doing part 2 of tips and tricks. And I just wanted to let you know that because Phil and I had so many tips and tricks for you that we broke this into 2 episodes. And it's really all about how to make a plant-based lifestyle more enjoyable because we have to do some cooking. When you eat this way, you really have to cook. We cook all of our own foods, which means we cook our own components. And by components, I mean like we cook our own cheese sauces and we cook our own condiments and we blend up our own salad dressings and we cook basically every part of the meal because when you cook yourself, you know what's actually in your food. So we don't want to use processed foods. We don't use oil. We don't use refined foods or sugar. And when you do a lot of cooking, we want to make it more enjoyable. And we just feel like these little tips and tricks kind of help us along the way. So we have money saving tips in this episode. We have food waste tips. I need to work on that one, like what to do with your scraps, composting. We talk about having a vegetable garden and an herb garden, which I'm about to plant mine this week. Tips for organizing your kitchen, measuring out your spices. We talk about appliances and gadgets and oil-free cooking and knives and a whole bunch of good stuff. So I hope you enjoy this episode and let's get to it. Let's talk about money saving tips. We all like to save money. We already talked about how this is not an expensive way to eat, but there are things that you could do to save even more money. So
buying in bulk is a big one. I've learned to buy what I know I'm going to make. I don't just buy everything in bulk because it's in bulk, because sometimes you will waste money doing that. But things like cashews or certain spices that I use, nutritional yeast, things I know I'm going to use over and over. Not only do I buy in bulk, but I can comparison shop where I can look at Costco and see Costco, they don't have every spice you need, but they have a handful of them and you can buy, for the same price as a tiny little jar at my local store, I can get a 3-4 times as much at Costco. Nutritional yeast, I buy that online now because they only have the little shaker at my store or a small bag. Now I can buy 2 bags, and buying it right off out of the gate is going to be a little bit more, but in the end I'm paying a fraction of the cost for the actual product because I am buying it in bulk. Cashews, like you had mentioned, is another one. I'm buying a massive 5-pound bag of cashews, and while that is, I pay like $37, I think, for a 5-pound bag. For a 1-pound bag, it's 18 at my local store. It's like, holy cow, $18. So I am spending more, but I have cashews for 3 months then. I soak them, I put them in the freezer, and then I portion them out when I need them. And then I don't have to buy cashews at the store.
And it does seem like a lot of money, $37 to spend on cashews. But when you use them as much as we do in this cooking, he knows he's going to use them. So that is saving money. So he's either buying $37 worth once and having them for months, or he's spending $18 every week. It's just, we know we're going to be using this stuff. Red lentils is another one. I use, we go through so many dried red lentils. I make them so many different ways. And I just love having those. I buy those in bulk. I order mine from Amazon. I just like to get organic lentils, whatever the brand is. I don't even know right now, but I buy them in bulk and then I get this big shipment and I just keep them right in my pantry. What I like to do is put them in glass canisters, all my dried grains and beans, because they're just so nice and easy, and then just measure them out. I like to have garbanzo beans. I like to have especially pinto beans because I make our creamy refried beans from dried beans. And it's so easy to make. I make them in my Instant Pot. So I love having those pinto beans. I can make them in half an hour on a whim on a Tuesday, on a Taco Tuesday. I'll get those going while I'm cutting up my veggies. Cooking from dried beans and lentils and rice, it's just so nice. So it's nice to have them organized in glass canisters in your pantry.
And a fraction of the cost. You buy a bag of dried beans, you could probably make the equivalent of 5 cans of beans with that same dry bag of beans.
What did we just make with the red lentils? It was like 3/4 of a cup.
The tofu.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
It made the red lentil tofu. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Not only is it delicious, but a quarter of the price of regular tofu. Now it is a little bit different. You can't use a direct replacement, some meals, but yeah, I mean, that stuff's great and really inexpensive.
But also what you get out of 3/4 of a cup of the red lentils, that's like barely anything. And you get the equivalent of like 2 blocks of tofu, the way we prepare it. So learning to cook like that, it's always nice to have these staples on hand. Rice, red lentils, dried beans. It's cheap food. It's not expensive, especially if you buy them in bulk.
Yeah, I just saw they had like a massive bag of rice at the store. Not that I bought it, but I mean, it was like I think it was like $15, but it was like huge thing of rice. It's like,
Really?
man, I could buy one of those. It'd probably last me the year, but I didn't. But yeah, like things like that, where you can buy a bag of rice, a small bag of rice for $1.50, or you can buy a bulk bag of rice for $10 and have 20 times as much rice in that, the bulk bag.
Oh, we sort of talked about this. Make seasoning blends yourself. Don't waste money on something that you probably already have all the ingredients for. If you have a nicely stocked spice rack, like I said, our Cajun blend, our everything but the bagel seasoning, our jerk seasoning, taco seasoning, make them yourself. You already have everything on hand. Spices can be pricey, but like I said, when you buy them, we're using them in everything. So if you already have them, make your own spice blends and save yourself the $6, $8, whatever they are.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned to do is just kind of keeping track of what I'm buying where. So like when I'm at Costco, I kind of took a picture of all the spices, and then I made a mental note saying like, don't buy cumin at the local store because you're getting a tiny little jar. Get that at Costco. So then I eventually put it in a big spreadsheet saying like, okay, here's where I get my spices.
You're good.
So I go to the spice section and it's like, all right, get these spices at Costco, get these spices at Pete's, get these spices at Jewel, Amazon, same thing, nutritional yeast. Like I said, I can only get the little shaker or the Bob's Red Mill nutritional yeast at both of my stores. That's all they sell. But it's expensive. I mean, it's $6-7 for a bag, where it's like, I get it online, but now I know not to do that. I mean, unless I'm in a pinch, I need it, I have to get it. I'm not going to wait 2 days, for an Amazon delivery and making something tonight. But in the end, yeah, I know to buy those things in certain places. So I do keep track of like kind of where I buy certain things just to make sure I'm getting the most value out of my dollar.
Money saving tips. Here's another one. Who wastes tomato paste? That is
everybody.
Those little cans will get you every time. It's like, it's not enough. It's just that it's not quite enough. It's always too much for whatever recipe, because it's like a recipe calls for a tablespoon. That stuff is dense. So you only need like 2 tablespoons, maybe 3 max. And then you still have half the can left over. It's like, what do I do with it? What do you do with it, Phil? Tell everybody.
So I just made a little video about this. Yeah. And I don't even know where I saw it. I mean, it's so simple. Just get a sheet of plastic wrap and then just portion it out in the tablespoon measurements, and a dollop all the way down, and then just roll it, wrap it, and put it right in the freezer. And they just harden into balls. They don't stick to the plastic. And then whenever you need a tablespoon of tomato paste or 2, you just pull off or cut off as many as you need and use it from there. I've thrown away 1 million cans of tomato paste thinking I'm going to use it for something else, and then I never get around to it that week. Simple.
Nobody likes to waste food, and that tomato paste, me too. It's gotten me in the past, but never again. You can always save it that way. It's just so nice and handy. You don't even have to open a can. You just pull it out and it's just as fresh.
So another thing you can freeze is things like coconut milk or lemon juice, lime juice, pineapple, orange, any of the juices, even like garlic. If your garlic's going bad, sometimes I'll buy
garlic juice.
Garlic.
No. What?
Garlic juice.
Ew.
But yeah, if you have an ice cube tray, you can fill the ice cube trays, portion them in there. I try to measure things out rather than just saying, hey, it's just an ice cube of juice. I'll put a tablespoon, or if they're bigger ice cubes, 2 tablespoons or 3, or I know what's going in. But same thing, like there's a bunch of our recipes, like a sauce that calls for like 1 tablespoon of pineapple juice. And it's like, all right, I got to buy a whole jar of pineapple juice. And then we just drink it because it's here. But it's like, man, this was delicious. I know I'm going to use this again. I may as well portion out some of these and have a pineapple cube, down the road ready to go. Lemon juice, lime juice. We use that stuff all the time.
Pineapple juice is a perfect example, because we do use that in some of our peanut sauces, and I've done that too. You cannot buy the pineapple juice in a small bottle. I haven't found it. Unsweetened, 100% pure pineapple juice. So I buy the bigger jar, and then we drink it because I only used a little bit of it, a cup or, whatever it was. And so then we just drink it. But yeah, freeze it in the little cubes, portion it out, because the next time you make that sauce, it's going to be there. We have some desserts with pineapple juice too. I mean, it's just such a simple little step. And it's just about being organized. Coconut milk's another. We use coconut milk in a lot of recipes. That's another one when you just have a little bit left over, just portion it out. Like Phill said, freeze it. And the reason you put it in the ice cube trays is because then it freezes. Then you could take it out and put it in a bag. You don't have to leave it in the ice cube trays. You let it set, freeze, and then pop it out, put it in a bag, label it. You never have to waste that coconut milk again.
And sometimes things are just on sale. Like at my store, sometimes it's like, 10 limes for $1. And it's like, oh, 10 limes for $1. Then I buy 10 limes and I'm throwing 8 limes out by the end of the week. It's like, how many things am I eating lime with? But yeah, when you buy them on sale like that, and they're only a dime, because I've also seen them for like 50 cents each or whatever. It's like, wow, these are a fifth of the price. I'll stock up while they're cheap.
And it's another thing Phil's really good at. Make your veggie broth yourself. Make your mushroom broth yourself, especially mushroom broth. It's hard to find that without salt or lots of it. The mushroom broths, I can't say that, that I have found are very, very salty, and they will really change up the recipes. So we just did one recently where I always put this in the notes. If you have salt in your mushroom broth, you can't add the salt. You have to taste it first and then add the salt, because for some reason, they really salt that stuff up store-bought. So our mushroom broth on our site has a little bit of salt in it, but not a lot, just a tiny bit for flavor. And it's not salty. So you can use it freely, add the salt in our recipes. But making your own, I mean, that stuff also is super expensive. It's like $6 for a carton at my store, where Phill just makes big batches of this stuff. Do you freeze it or do you just have it in your fridge?
Yeah.
Oh, you do freeze it.
Yeah, so I'll make a huge pot. I usually make like a 16-cup pot out of the one bag of the dried mushrooms. So I buy a bag of dried mushrooms for like $3.60, or maybe close to $4. So usually with the mushroom stock, I have like onions, garlic. I try not to put too much in there. Salt. I do put some salt in, and pepper. That's kind of the basics that I put in the mushroom broth. Yeah, so I buy a mushroom. I buy the dried mushrooms for about almost $4, maybe three something a bag, and then it makes enough for whatever that is. 16 cups. So it's what, 6 portions, like 6 boxes, I guess, or 5 to 6 boxes for the same price as less than 1 box. I'm making 5-6 boxes of that stuff, and it takes a little bit of time. But I'm literally just throwing it in a pot and letting it simmer for a while. It does reduce down, so that 16 cups turns a little bit less. But personally, I think it's way better. I can adjust. Hey, I'm going to put a little bit more garlic in mine, put a little bit more onions in mine, not as much salt, a little bit more pepper, whatever it is, you can make the adjustment. But I freeze them in like 3-cup portions, kind of like what a box of that broth would be. And then I just put them in the freezer and mark them.
Well, he also makes, his own veggie broth out of all the veggie scraps that you're just cooking with anyway. And all the scraps, onion, carrots, celery, garlic, mushrooms, parsley, thyme. However you do it, you save everything. I still am trying to get on board with this.
So anytime I'm cutting anything, I mean, and it's constant. So there's 2 things that I do that work very well is with veggie scraps. There's never a loss, because whatever I don't freeze for broth, I'm putting in my compost. So I'm 100% using any vegetables that I have.
Awesome.
But I try to stick with kind of some basics, and I do mix it up. The balance between that is always a little bit off, because with the mushroom broth, it's like I'm buying a bag of mushrooms and I'm adding onions and garlic. It's pretty basic. Whereas the veggie broth, there's carrots and celery and onions. Sometimes there's more garlic because I feel it was going bad, or garlic was on sale. So I throw the old head into the freezer with all the scraps. But anytime I'm cutting any of that up, I do stay away from things that have kind of very strong flavors like ginger, unless I was making a specific, I'm going to make like a ginger broth for like an Asian soup or something. I try to stay away from stuff that has really strong flavors like that. That's going to make it taste like something a little bit other than vegetable broth. But the problem with that is then it's never really consistent. Oh, this tastes a little different from the last one because I had more celery in this one, or I had more onions in that one. But in the end, any of those scraps, I just keep loading them into a scrap bag in my freezer. I wash them all just so I know they're washed before I put them in. They're frozen when they come out. I put them on a tray with parchment. I roast them in the oven just because I like that roasted flavor. And
Mm.
then I drop them all into a big vat, cover them with water, and make as much veggie broth as I can.
And this is just the stuff you do in your spare time, while he's cooking other things. It's just really easy. It's not even a huge process because it's all the scraps you're just throwing together. Well, I've been burned with the veggie broth because, okay, so I used to buy Engine 2 and I loved it because they don't put anything in it. There's no salt even in theirs. It's just a nice mild veggie broth. And then they stopped making it for so long. And so I had to experiment with other store boughts because I didn't get on the train yet to be making my own veggie broth, but I'm going to this summer. I'm going to do it. I have so many scraps too. I need to do this. But anyway, I got burned by buying an off brand I didn't know. And I threw it into whatever I was making at the time. And it was just terrible. And the veggie broth had such a strong flavor. It tasted like dirty dishwater to me. It just was bad. It was just bad, bad, bad. And it just ruined whatever I was making. I want to really start making my own like Phil does, because then again, you always know what's in it. You know the consistency, you know what it's going to taste like, and you know the sodium. So for the veggie broths with sodium, and especially that mushroom broth, don't add the salt until you taste it. You know the content, the salt content in your store bought broths. He also composts, which is just so awesome.
Yeah, I have a huge, well, I have two. I bought like a double compost tumbler, which I used to have one. And then when that one broke, I went for two. What's nice about having two, and they're large, they're in the backyard, like under my deck. So they're just kind of out of the way. I know some people just don't have room to put these or whatever, but you never really know how much food waste that you're producing until you start saving it up. There is always a bowl of like stuff I'm going to put in the compost, like on my counter. Actually, my wife just bought a little compost thing because she's sick of seeing the big bowl of scraps sitting out.
Wait, you have to send that to me. I need that. That's what I
Yeah,
need.
it's cute. It's all wood, and then it's got a stainless steel inside with a stainless steel top. So it doesn't hold a lot, which I think she did on purpose. So I had to kind of keep it because usually I put it in that big bowl and it just piles up for like 2 or 3
She's
days.
sick of seeing that on the counter. She doesn't even
Yes,
want fresh veggies on the counter. She doesn't want rotting vegetable scraps.
I hear you. I hear you. Just and in the summer, I'm much better about it. In the winter, I got to go down in the snow, the ice, under the deck. It's not something I want to do all the time.
So that's just what you're carting out to your compost. You save it in that then.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm cutting up vegetables for dinner. I could put the vegetables in. If it's anything I'm saving for my scrap bag for the broth, I put that in the freezer, and anything left over, I put in the compost. And then I put in the compost tumbler. So one compost tumbler is composting, and I'm feeding the other. So I have huge bags of dry leaves that I add to the vegetables, and I just keep spinning it until it'll eventually turn to dirt. So I'm going to do a video on that because the other batch is going to be ready in the next 2 weeks, where I'm going to add it to my garden for this year.
So how much is that whole compost system you have? Is it expensive to originally buy it? No.
I think it was a couple $100 for the double. I mean, you can get small ones, you can get little bins, you can create your own with. My buddy Javier made his own in his backyard just with wood. He built it or whatever. The problem with those is then you have to kind of shovel it and mix it yourself, where these are nice. It has a door. I throw everything in, I close the door, and then I hand spin it, so it tumbles, in there. And then every few days, anytime I'm back there, I'll give it a couple of spins just to keep it kind of mixing up. But it is really cool because not everything, but a lot of it just turns into these big balls of earth, and then you can break them apart and you add them into the garden. It smells very earthy. It doesn't really stink. It doesn't smell like, a bunch of rotting food. Everyone's like, oh, that must stink. It really doesn't. It just smells really earthy. It smells like, just smelling dirt.
And it's the best nutrient dense dirt you can find. You can make yourself. He's making his own dirt to feed his garden with the scraps that he used. It's so sustainable and it's so awesome. He's just putting it right back into the earth. I mean, I need to start doing this. When I'm over at your house next time, I'm going to show me like how it all works so I can get started on this.
Yeah, it's super easy. And finding a balance sometimes just with because basically it's nitrogen, which is the fresh scraps, and carbon, which is like dried leaves. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what's kind of creating the chemical reaction. And sometimes you have too, like at the end of last season, I just had way too many leaves. I didn't know what to do with all the leaves. So I think it was a little leaf heavy. So now I'm adding the nitrogen, scraps to try to, get it to start to compost. But I'm not a pro. I mean, I've been doing it for years. It's just kind of throwing in there. Every time I add a bowl of scraps, I add a handful of leaves, tumble it up, and just, kind of keep going.
And if you can grow your own garden or even an herb garden, any type of garden, do it. It's first of all, it's so much fun. It's just another money saver. You're growing your own food. You're buying tiny little plants for $2, $3, $4. And you could have like my basil plants, basil all summer. And you know how expensive basil is. I can't even imagine buying basil at the height of summer when I'm giving it away because that stuff grows like a weed. I mean, it just grows and grows, and I am giving it away. It's just so fun to watch things grow that you planted yourself. And by the end of summer, everything's booming. You're going outside to snip herbs and kale. Remember the kale planter baskets I had? I mean, it's just Phil has a nice big garden that he built, and things come back every year. The thing like the onions are probably already coming back.
They are.
Are they? Yeah.
The chives, yeah. Yeah, the garden's fun. I do enjoy it. The weeding, organic garden is hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to keep weed free. You have to kind of stay on it. Last year was probably
It's
my
mom's
best year.
job.
Yeah.
Our mom likes doing that.
It's a job. Last time she did it, I think it was a little much for her. And I'm out there too. It's not like I sent mommy out to weed my garden.
Mom's in town to rest. Get out there.
You're here to rest. Here's your mat, and you're digging.
She's my dishwasher. She's your gardener.
If I can only work my laundry in when she's. No, but yeah, that's in last year, like I said, it's just a matter of staying on top of it. So I think I was way more vigilant and keeping the weeds out last year, kind of throughout the year. In previous years, I would just wait till the weeds got to a certain height and then start pulling them all. And it takes hours and hours, as opposed to just kind of keeping on top of it week after week. So it worked out great last year, but you don't need a massive amount of space. It really just depends on mine's like a 6 by 12 foot. And I built it above ground with like whatever those are called, 2 by 6s, I guess, and some brackets. So it's super easy. I didn't want to dig into the ground here. I wanted above just because then it provides a little bit of a deterrent for small animals to not get over the 2 by 6s. And then I have kind of wire up.
Chicken wire.
Yeah, past that, just so bigger animals don't get in. But even if you don't, like you had those garden bags, those were really cool too. Like you guys just kind of set them up on the back deck last year.
Yeah, so we're having our backyard. We have a nice big backyard. I'm grateful for it. It's like a really nice yard, but there was nothing really done to it. We bought the house 2 years ago. So we've kind of been planning. We planted some trees last year. We cleared out a giant space. So we didn't really, and plus there's a lot of big trees. So there's not a lot of sun drenched areas, but we found a little space, and we're kind of planning out where our garden's going to go this year. But in the meantime, the last 2 years, we bought these planter bags that are really nice. This woman at our farmer's market brought them and was selling them. And they're just nice. I did a video too, so it's somewhere up on our private Facebook page. If you're part of that group, you can go watch the video. But they're these kind of big bags. They're these brown burlap bags, and they hold a lot of dirt. And then we just lined them up on the bench on our deck outside. I think we bought like 8 of them. And then we planted all of our herbs in those. And it was just really, really nice. I even planted kale in one of them. I planted fennel. I think I tried tomatoes the first year. That didn't work out very well. I tried like the baby tomatoes, but for herbs, they're so great to have, and they really work.
If you go to the SmartyPlants.org website, that's what I'm clipping in that video as I'm clipping some of Judy's herbs in the back.
Yeah, we were clipping herbs. Yeah, that's it. You can see them. The kale. That's awesome to have that. But I love having the herbs all season, just to go out and anytime you want chives or rosemary or thyme or basil, it's all right there. And it's really fun. It's all fresh. It's so fun to go out and pick a little bowl of herbs, and it inspires you to even cook with these things. And you go out there and you see it and you're like, what can I make with all this?
What's nice is, and you had already made mention of it. For one, I buy plants as well. So you can even buy seeds and grow them from seeds. You can germinate seeds. I don't do that. What I like about the plants is one, it produces vegetables quicker. Sometimes I buy them and they already have little peppers on them already, the pepper
Hmm.
plants or whatever that is.
I don't think I've ever planted seeds. Did you plant seeds when you planted your original garden?
I do plant some seeds here and there. It just depends on what it is. So I tried like carrots. I haven't found any pre-grown carrot plants. So so I
No.
so I planted carrots a handful of times, but everything else, the peppers, the lettuce, all the herbs, it yields it quicker. So you have them on hand. But it also, like you said, I buy a basil plant for the same price I'm buying a little thing of basil at the
Yeah,
store. And then I have basil for 6 months, and I have so much I can't even use all the basil. Like those things grow like crazy. Those basil plants.
exactly. I
I used to buy
know.
I used to buy like 6 of them, and it's like, oh my god, it's like I can't now. I buy two. It's like it produces so much basil that I don't need to buy that many plants. And then I've tried different plants, the Thai basil, the lemon basil, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I love that Thai basil. Yeah, mint's another one. If you like mint, that stuff grows like crazy and it grows all season. You'll be giving it away, freezing it. We were making drinks out of it. I was putting it in my water. I mean, it's like I think we bought two little plants.
When you have it, you use it.
You
It's
use
not
it.
when I had basil, it's like, am I going to go to the store and be like, what can I use basil on? But when I
Mm.
have it, it's like, what can I use this basil on? So now I'm going to make the pesto. I'm going to throw that in pasta. I'm going to put that in the gravy. I'm going to use it in more stuff. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, where I'm using it in place of, I do this with oregano all the time, where I use fresh oregano instead of the dried, just because
Hmm.
I think that the flavor is so much more pungent, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's overpowering. And then it's like, I'll use the same volume and it's just like, whoa, there's a lot of oregano in this.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be careful of that sometimes for
So
sure.
I've learned to adjust as you go and use the fresh herbs. But same thing, tofu scramble. It's like, all right, I'm going to go out to the
Hmm.
garden. I'm going to put a little rosemary. I have some basil. I have some lemon thyme. I have
Yeah.
chives. I'm going to make like an herb blend and just sprinkle it on the top. Of a tofu scramble or whatever, like pasta. An easy pasta dish.
So we make those basil ribbons. We show you how to do that on the website. So yeah, there's so much basil in the summer. I'll just take them, stack them up, slice them into little ribbons, and then I love putting those on pizza. Fresh basil at the end, the little
Yeah.
ribbons sprinkled all over the top of your pizza, or pasta at the end of any pasta you're making. The basil ribbons, it just gives it that pop. So that's what we're saying. When you use these in such creative ways, you just start using it because it's right there. You walk past it and you get that whiff of fresh basil. You're like, that sounds good on my tofu scramble. That sounds good on my sandwich. That sounds good on just leaves of basil thrown into your stir fry is delicious. Put it in your rice.
And then
So good.
when I have it, I mean, every time I'm making something with basil, it's just like that's another $5 I'm not spending at the
I
store
know.
like all summer long, and that thing goes to the very end
It
of
does.
the season, which is awesome.
Yeah, if you know how much basil costs, when you see that booming basil in your garden, it makes you really happy. Okay, on to organizing your kitchen, your spice cabinet. So my spice cabinet is pretty much a mess because it's not. It's like an organized mess. I mean, it's very clean and organized, but I just can't find anything. So like when my mom's here,
Sounds real organized.
she dang it, I can't find anything in there. I just move too fast and I put it all away, like shove it all in there. Then when my mom comes, she alphabetizes it and it just never stays that way. I don't know why. It just never stays that way.
I must have drove mom nuts when I was down in her place because I just pull it out and put it back in.
I know. She's very organized, that woman. But I can't keep mine alphabetized. But here's my new goal. Another goal for my summer. My friend Alma was just telling me about this. Why don't you buy larger jars? Because I just can't get my measuring spoons into my jars because they're tiny jars. So my new goal is I'm going to buy all larger jars, not too large because they still need to fit in my spice cabinet, but larger mouthed jars. Let's put it that way. I'm going to find them. And when I do, I'm going to tell you guys where to
I am.
find them. I'm going to buy them, but larger mouth jars. So all my measuring spoons fit inside. And then I'm going to pour all my spices and I'm going to label them: granulated garlic, onion, basil, oregano, so I could just open them up, throw my spoon in and go. Here I am juggling them and it never works that way. And then you have spices falling out and you have a pour bowl, and no, I don't want to do that anymore. So organize your spices. be able to get your spoons into the mouth of the jars, and have plenty of measuring spoons. Now, I like the spoons personally that are narrow because those fit in any jar instead of those very wide measuring spoons that you cannot get in the jar. That drives me crazy. So this problem will all go away if I just have the wide mouth spice jars, which I'm going to find. But having plenty of spoons, there's nothing worse than you're in the middle of a recipe and where's my quarter teaspoon? I can't find it. Now I'm back digging for that. Have everything out and ready to go. And if you have backups, pull those out, because what I also like to do is do my dry measurements first. And we try to write our recipes this way. Sometimes we forget, and our past recipes, forget it. We haven't gone back and organized them all in this way, but it's nice to do your dry first before you get into the sticky stuff like maple syrup and tahini, because then you're rinsing out your quarter teaspoon. Oh, it just gets to be frustrating. So the point is, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. So we want to do all the dries first, then get into the sticky stuff. I also like to have a little rubber spatula to get all in there in the tablespoon. Because if you have tahini, you want to get everything that's in the tablespoon with the little rubber scraper. And then it's cleaned out enough to pour your maple syrup in.
Well, not only that, I mean, if you ever use tahini, and you can, it's like a coating on the whole inside. And it's like, I wonder how much of the tablespoon was left in the spoon,
That's why you have to scrape it out, right?
Right. It's adjusting how much you're putting into your recipe as well. Not by a ton, but if you're only putting a half a teaspoon in something and there's remnants still left, you're really not even putting that in.
I love those little tiny spatulas. They get into those little corners and they get everything. If you have a can of tomato sauce, you can get in there and get don't just pour it in and, toss the can in the recycling. You have all that tomato sauce left in the can. Get in there, scrape it all with your baby scraper. And then your blender too. Every time I make a sauce in my blender or dressing, I get in there with my baby little scraper, my baby spatula, and it gets it all. So I also like to have a bunch of those ready to go because I just use them every time I'm cooking, and I use those baby spatulas. And for the tahini, you want a clean one, because then the spoon that you scrape the tahini out with, you want that tahini back in your tahini jar. You don't want to just toss that in the sink. There's a lot of tahini stuck to that spoon. So I use a clean baby spatula to get all that back in. It's just always trying to save as much as you can here and use as much as you can. So have all those ready to go before you even start cooking.
Did you ever get to a point where it's like, oh, I hope there's enough of this? So it happens with like tamari. It's like, oh, I need 1 tablespoon. I hope there's enough. And it's just enough. And it's like all those times that, like let's say with the tahini, all those times you scrape that little back in when you have that one perfect last one. Like, it wouldn't have worked out that well had I not done that little trick,
Oh, those are fun moments. You have just enough and you're like, oh, I don't have to run back to the store. We do a lot of store runs. But yeah, having everything ready to go, really, the French call this mise en place. That means having everything in its place. So it's really nice to have all of your spoons organized and all of your measuring cups organized, but it's also nice to have all of your food, your mise en place ready. So I don't do this every time because I'm not that disciplined, but when I do, I like to have every spice pulled out, and I like to work from left to right, just in case you get distracted and you forget which spice line you are in the lineup here. I've got 5 spices that are going in. I put them all on my left side and I have my bowl in the middle. I put the smoked paprika in, it goes on my right. I take the oregano, put that in from my left, and then it goes on my right. And then the phone rings and now I'm distracted. I'm like, where was I? Did I put the garlic in? No, it's still on my left. I didn't put it in yet. So that's how I try to keep organized. And with the mise en place, it's like you have everything cut. You have your garlic cut. You have your onions chopped. You have everything ready, as organized as you can be, because you can't really, especially if you're making a stir fry, you can't be chopping and doing the garlic when everything's cooking on the stove. You have to be ready. So not only organize your kitchen, but that's a little bit of like organizing your meals as well.
So you can always clean as you go, just so you don't have a big mess in the kitchen. I was really bad at doing this for a long time. And then, you're done cooking and the kitchen is a disaster. So I do try to, like with table, if I'm using, cups and spoons and measuring spoons, I'm trying to get everything into the sink as I go. And then I do have like a big scrap bowl that I'm throwing scraps into. I have, so just kind of getting things organized. So when I'm done, everything's not out. And especially if something has to then cook on the stove, then I'll go back to cleaning up a little bit, get the spices are all together, and I'll put them back in the spice cabinet.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. First of all, I don't like working in a messy area. And if you're cooking a lot, you just know things get messy. You have sticky things, you have little granules here and there. I mean, you can be as organized as you can be, and you're still going to have a little bit of mess. Something drips, So what I like to do is if I have a big mixing bowl that I've been using, I use my mixing bowls to throw all my cups and spoons into, and then I put it right in the sink and I let those soak, especially like a tahini spoon that needs to soak. You don't want to put your sponge right on that thing. So anything that needs to be soaked, throw it in that bowl, have it soaked while you're on to the next thing. Wipe up your area, which brings me to have plenty of clean dish towels around, because I like to have a couple of those around. One always gets wet or gets sticky, or I wipe something that I don't want to dry my hands on it now. But I'm also constantly like rinsing my hands or rinsing off the knife, or you cut the garlic and now it's time to cut something else. Well, now it's kind of sticky. Rinse off the knife. Now you want to dry it. So just have a few dish towels lying around just so you're ready to go. And you could just keep clean that way too. And have your hot pads ready too, because plenty of times I've used the dish towels because they're right there to grab something hot. And no, those don't work. I am really disciplined now with using my are they called hot pad? What are they called? Hot pads? No,
Okay.
The baking things you put your hands into. What are they called? They're not hot pads, are they? Baking pads. Gloves, baking gloves.
Baking gloves?
Hot pad gloves. What are they called?
Mitts.
Okay, they're not gloves, they're mittens.
Not mittens.
Baking mittens. Baking mitts. I like baking mitts. Some people like hot pads.
They're called oven mitts.
Thank you. He has spoken. Oven mitts.
Baking mitts. Baking gloves.
Boxing mitts. Okay, what are they? Oven gloves?
Oven mitts.
Oh, oven mitts.
We do have the of glove or whatever
Oven
that Amelia bought, the of glove. Yeah, oven mitts.
Oven mitts. Okay, have your oven mitts ready, because towels, you will burn yourself. I've done it a million times. I don't really cut myself much, and I cook a ton. I use lots of knives. I burn myself all the time because in a pinch, I'm grabbing those dish towels. They don't work. So be careful, take care of yourself. Don't get burned like I do. And
or you may catch one on fire like I did at you.
Yeah, he burned my oven. He burned my good dish towel. I still use it. If you try it, because then it hit like something in the oven and it just went right up in fire. It was really quite shocking.
This is like Tinder. This thing went right up.
It sure did. And then I really burned myself the other day, really bad. Not really bad. It just hurt. I had a metal whisk that I was whisking, and I just left it in the saucepan bubbling. The thing was metal. I didn't realize it. See? And then I move around so fast. I just went to grab it to re-whisk, and whoa, that was flaming red hot.
Handful of seared
Be
flesh.
careful out there. Don't let this deter you from cooking, though.
Well, but that's just it. Like and I have the whisk that I have. Well, I have a couple, but the big one that I have now is like rubber coated. The bottom is rubber coated. Yeah. And the top has a metal handle. I have a small all metal one, but yeah, because I was thinking, why is it rubber coated? Now I know.
Now you know. I grabbed the metal and you don't leave it in the pot either. I don't know why I did that. I usually leave it sitting on top of the pot. Don't leave it anywhere near the pot. Whisk and put it on the side, but get a rubber coated whisk. That's what I need to put on my list, because that metal one really hurt. Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Phil. I just wanted to take a quick break in the discussion to remind everyone that Smarty Plants has 2 great meal plans to offer. The first is our 28-day kickstart, which is for people who are curious about a plant-based diet but really don't know where to begin. It's also for people who have health or weight issues and need some help getting healthy. Our program includes 28 days of carefully planned recipes that are simple to make and super tasty. Things like Caesar salad, nachos, and pizza. It also includes meal prep instructions, a grocery list, and daily lessons on things like stocking a plant-based kitchen, weight loss, and navigating social situations. You'll come out of it a plant-based rock star. If this sounds good to you, you should become one of our Kickstarters. Our second program is our weekly meal plan. This is for people who have the plant-based basics down, but they want trusted and trusted delicious recipes each week. Our members receive at least 3 new recipes each week created by our very own Smarty Plants team. Things like pesto lasagna, crunch wraps, French onion, grilled cheese, sauces, mains, sides, desserts, and more. Our meal planners have access to our full recipe database, our meal planner where they can customize their meals each week and create a grocery list, meal prep instructions, and great support, of course. Stop downloading random recipes from strangers on the internet and check out our tested and delicious recipes. If this sounds good to you, let us do the heavy lifting for you and become one of our weekly meal planners. For more info, check out our website, SmartyPlants.org, and use the discount code PODCAST2022. That's PODCAST 2022. You'll receive 50% off our 28-day Kickstart or 50% off our weekly meal plan for up to 3 months. Now back to the show.
So for this way of cooking, you really want to have a high-speed blender, a food processor, a pot with a steamer basket and lid, parchment paper, and silicone baking mats. Those are just some essentials because starting with the high-speed blender, we cook all of our sauces and dressings. It really grinds nuts, like our cashews that we soak. It really grinds the nuts down. It just whips things up like our cashew sour cream, our jalapeno lime crema, and that high speed, it really whips it into like that fluffiness that we want that regular blenders can't do. So you don't have to go out and buy like a Vitamix, which I know are pricey. I have a Vitamix that I've had for 10, 15 years, I think. It still works great. So if you want to spend the money or you can spend the money, buy one because they do work great, but you don't have to. You have a Vitamix now. I think you got one for Christmas, but he always for years was using his Ninja, or I think you still use it, your Bullet, NutriBullet. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, we started with the NutriBullet, and then like the something happened just with the cups, the thing broke off. We wanted something a little bit more powerful, and then my wife bought me a Ninja, and then we had the Ninja, and then I bought she bought the Vitamix for me. But if it's just something small and quick, instead of doing everything in the blender, I sometimes I'll just use that. But for higher volume, or if I know I need more power, I'll use the Vitamix. And that thing is, it's awesome because over the last few years, my regular blender just doesn't cut it. Like we got a blender as a wedding gift. That was 25 years ago. The blender still works to blend things, to mix things. It can't crush ice. It can't blend cashews. What you do is you get kind of just a grainy texture on things. It just doesn't blend it to the consistency that we needed it to blend it.
Yeah, this thing is it's just awesome. The only thing is it's hard to blend smaller portions. So I think they have smaller jars for the Vitamix, but mine is a big one. So if you have like a small dressing or sauce, it kind of just goes and it sticks to the side. And sometimes I make double or triple batches because once you have a nice amount of liquid, that thing will blend anything up. But it's just if you have a tiny portion, I did notice that. Like it's not great for hummus. I like to use my food processor for hummus, if like one recipe of our hummus. But if you made a double recipe of hummus, it would work great. It's just that you'll see some things will just stick to the sides and you can't really get a good blend. But it's just the nature of it. But I do think they make smaller jars. I'm going to write that down and look for that because have you ever had that happen in your Vitamix where it sticks to the sides and you can't get it blending up? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they're awesome. Another little tip with the small food processor is to use that if you have one. Mine just died, so I have to get another one. Another thing that I've had for years and years and years, and I just love it for quick chopping, for hummus, quick little things. So you don't have to use your big food processor for just quick little things. But just for if you have to chop large quantities of garlic and onions, throw it in your food processor, your mini food processor. It's so quick and easy. Some recipes, we have 8 cloves of garlic. Throw it in there. It's really quick. Some soups, if you have 2 onions, throw it in there. Done. You don't have to chop. It's nice to have a steamer basket with a lid because it's really nice to steam vegetables, and we use it for our seitan. That's just something it's really nice to have on hand, to have around. I've used the little steamers that you can just buy to put in a pot. I just like a pot that has a built-in steamer. Do you have that?
Yeah, I actually have I guess it's a double broiler with a steamer basket. So it's the big pot. There's an inside deep strainer. Like if I made pasta, I could just pull that center one out and it would strain. And then the steamer basket sits on top of that. And then there's a lid on top of that. I steam tamales in the deep one, or I steam the seitan and the one on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just nice it's just like an all-in-one. So I just
Yeah.
keep it in my cabinet and you pull it out. You don't have to look for the basket. And, I know even something like that seems like a process. Like I need to get a steamer basket. It's just a pot with a lid and a basket. Just buy the whole thing. It's just easy to steam things that way.
My wife also bought it's like a little silicone steamer, I guess. So like in a regular pot, I could just put that in the bottom and then just put whatever you want on top of it and then just put the lid on. So it kind of makes its own steamer basket out of just a regular pot.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen those.
Yeah, I mean, I use the other one mostly, but I'll use that just depending, because that one offers me a little bit more room if I use that one. But yeah, it's convenient when I need it.
And then a large nonstick skillet. We're always using our large nonstick skillets because we don't cook with oil, so we don't want anything to stick. That's pretty much essential to this way of cooking. So invest in a nice large nonstick so you can cook anything you want in there. I use it even for small things. And we cook with parchment paper and silicone baking mats because that's for oil-free roasting, because nothing sticks to them. So you can make crispy fries. I make our banana bread with that. We line a loaf pan, it pops right out. Nothing sticks to this stuff. I'm talking about the parchment paper, not the silicone baking mat. That's more for lining your baking sheet. But we roasted veggies on there, and it's the two of them work great. Nothing sticks to them. So that's how we get around the oil for baking. So speaking of oil-free cooking, we cook without oil. So we cook with water or veg broth. I think you use veg broth more than I do. I just use water. So whatever I'm cooking, you just browning onions or mushrooms, you heat up your pan, throw them in there. And what we do with this little tip is to let them sit for a second so they will brown, because we're looking for that flavor. That's where the flavor is, in the browning. So heat up your nonstick skillet, throw your onions in, throw your mushrooms in, let them sit for a minute, and then just start tossing them. And if they're really, really fresh, they'll have a lot of their own juices. You might not even have to add any water, but if they start to stick after a while, just throw in a splash of water, splash of veg broth. We have this in most all of our recipes, and toss them and brown them that way. There's absolutely no need for oil, which Phil and I used to start our everything with a big lug of olive oil and garlic. I mean, that's all we knew. But who knew? You didn't need the oil.
Yeah, I do use the broth. If it's a meal that I'm using broth, like I won't open I won't thaw one out just in case I need a splash. But if I'm making like a soup and I'm sauteing the vegetables and I'm going to use that broth, yeah, I will. And when I'm freezing things, sometimes I'll throw in a little extra. So instead of 3 cups, I might do 3.5 cups when I freeze it, knowing I'm probably going to use a little just to saute, when I'm doing that. So
Wow.
I remeasure it, before. If it's soup, I mean, another half a cup might not matter, a quarter cup may not matter. But
another thing that I love having around the kitchen is a bench scraper. I think you bought me my first one.
Oh, that was nice of you.
I know, it's awesome. And if you don't know what this is, it's like just a little scraper. Is it called? Here I go again. Is it a bench scraper or a paint scraper?
An oven scraper.
No, it's a mitt scraper. No, it's just, I think it's one of those things that like painters use to scrape. That's what it looks like, to scrape paint. But I think in the kitchen, in the kitchen, it is called a bench scraper. And it's just this big square thing that you can scrape up the food off of your cutting board really quickly. Anything that you've chopped, don't use your knife. That will dull it. I do it in a pinch still, which you're not supposed to, because it dulls your knife. Like after you chop, using your big knife to scrape everything, no, have a bench scraper and use that. It's really, really nice. You can pick up a bigger quantity of stuff that you just chopped with the bench scraper. So those are great. Kitchen scissors are another thing that I love having around. Scissors that are designated just for your kitchen, whether it's cutting fresh herbs or, anything that you're going to use around your kitchen, cutting, what else do you use them for? Fresh herbs, whatever else you need to cut in your kitchen.
I guess anything they're just the fresh herb scissors.
Anything that you're going to be cutting in your kitchen that you don't want to mix with, kids' science projects. And then we already talked about spatulas, but wooden spoons, I like using wooden spoons because you use those for food that you're actually cooking. It won't damage the bottom of your nonstick skillet. You could scrape any bits with a wooden spoon. You can't do that with like a metal spatula or spoon. Yeah.
Or even just having like, I know you mentioned small spatulas. My wife just got me a couple of big spatulas, so now we have kind of three sizes. The big ones for like, if I'm making stuff in that big bowl, it's a lot easier with that big one. Then we have just middle-sized ones, and now we have the small ones as well. And I got to say, before I'd be like, we'd have one spatula, and we just use that same one, and sometimes it fits and things, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Now it's like now I got the right spatula for the right job. But it does come in handy when you need like the small ones or the big ones. I would say we do have one that has a wooden handle. Be careful, the wooden ones, just you can't put those in the dishwasher or let them soak in water. You just need to wash them right away and just let them dry.
So some other time savers, obviously the microwave saves time. If you have a microwave, a citrus press. I love my citrus press. I don't know if you, Phil, have one yet or no.
You bought me 2 of them.
Oh, geez. I really want him to use the citrus press. Can you tell?
You bought me a lemon one, and then you bought me a lime one.
And he bought me a garlic press, which I still don't use because I like to chop my own garlic. He's like, why aren't you pressing your garlic? Did I say it? Yeah, garlic press. I don't know. I just like chopping my own garlic, but that's another thing that's a time saver, the garlic press.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you have to mince up 4 cloves of garlic, that takes, that's a good 15 minutes of time. I don't have that kind of time to be putting in garlic. But it also, I mean, with the press, I mean, personally, I think it just disperses the flavor a little bit better, especially if it's in like a sauce or something like that. I love garlic, so it doesn't bother me. It's hard to mince garlic to the exact same size. I mean, when you're mincing it up and you're mincing it, but sometimes there's bigger pieces and sometimes there's tiny pieces. With the press, it all goes through those round holes. It's all the same size.
That's a really good point, because when I mince it by hand, I really have to go at it to get it minced, and I do it for a long time. Right.
I will do it for like, we made it wasn't a stir fry. I made we made it threw together a soup last night, like an Asian soup. So I made like a miso broth, but I wanted to saute the garlic, but I knew it would burn pretty quick. So I wanted to put it in with the onions, and I had a little jalapeno pepper. So I did mince it because I wanted to take a little bit longer to cook as opposed to the press, which is going to cook considerably faster than the mince. So it's not that I never do it. I will do it, but I definitely need time to do it. And it has to be certain dishes that I'll do it on.
Yeah. With the citrus press, it's just so nice to not, you slice up your lemons and press them. There's no seeds. It's really quick. To me, it's like no fuss. 1, 2, 3. It's right there in my drawer. Just makes it super quick. If you have an Instant Pot, there's lots of recipes. We have a few recipes right now on the site, but lots of recipes that you can make in the Instant Pot that are so quick and easy and done right away. What I like doing is like I said, our creamy refried beans, super quick in there, making rice perfectly every time in the Instant Pot. Oh, like any kind of dried bean you could make in minutes. Really, you could have beans ready to go, like pinto beans or black beans. The toaster oven is super nice. You don't have to light your oven every time, and heat up the house. If you have a toaster oven, it's really nice for a lot of things. Salad spinner to dry your salad, your lettuce on, spinning it really quickly. A mortar and pestle is really nice to have around just for like grinding your spices. A mandolin for slicing. We just have an au gratin potato recipe now that's delicious in our meal plan, just for slicing those potatoes super thin. That's really nice. A spice grinder for fresh spices. I use my coffee grinder. I don't have a designated spice grinder, but the coffee grinder works. Frank and I don't care. We grind everything in that thing. We grind our flax seeds. You just rinse it out.
Do you grind coffee in it still?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, we don't grind coffee anymore, but that's what we use is our old coffee grinder. And I'll grind up like the dried peppers. I'll grind up flax seeds. You're right. We just, but we don't grind coffee anymore. Do you ever get like a hot pepper coffee or like
sometimes we don't care. It all mixes together. No, I clean it pretty well, but yeah, sometimes you get a hint of like coriander or something. It's like, it's coffee.
Is this a coriander latte? Sure is. Today it is.
Latte. There you go again with the French. Isn't it latte? Latte. It's latte. It's latte. It's not latte.
I didn't say latte.
Yes, you did.
Latte.
Yeah, you said
latte.
You said latte. Latte, Satan. So fancy around here.
Well, apparently I don't drink enough of them to know the difference.
You don't go to Starbucks enough.
Fancy pants.
Get in your lattes. Okay. Next thing we want to talk about is knives. So sharp knives are an absolute must. Sharp knives are actually safer than dull knives because when you're sawing away at veggies with a dull knife, it's going to slip and you're going to cut yourself. So that's when you know it's time to sharpen your knives. You can sharpen them with a knife sharpener or the fancy diamond knife sharpener that our Uncle Bill bought both of us. He loves that thing.
Not only did he buy us that knife sharpener, but he sharpens every knife in my house when he comes to visit, which is awesome.
Love having him around.
Man, every time he comes, he's like, "When's the last time you sharpened these knives?" I go, "I don't know. When's the last time you sharpened those?"
No, when's the last time you sharpened these knives?
Then he gets the whole spread out. He puts the mat down. He's got the sharpener. He's going every knife he sharpens.
He's got a process. And that diamond knife sharpener, we both have one. It's awesome.
It is really nice.
Or you can take them to a professional. I've never done that, but we did have that traveling knife sharpener. It was so cute. This little man, he was on a bike. Remember, he'd come around the neighborhoods in Evanston and he would sharpen, and you'd hear him, he'd ring a bell and we'd all run out with our knives.
It's like 1920 all over again.
I know. It was so cute. I hope he's around this summer. But you can take them to a professional knife sharpener. Sometimes they have them at farmers markets where you can just bring your knives down. But anyway, you want 3 basic knives: a chef's knife, a paring knife, and a serrated knife. Now, the chef's knife, if you're not comfortable with knives, you really want to get comfortable with this one. It's a 7-inch blade that fits your hand really well. And I know it probably, if you're not used to cutting with these knives, it might sound big and scary because it did to me before I started learning how to really cut, but you will get used to it. Your hand will fit around it. You'll learn how to grip it the right way. And this knife, they can be pricey, to these really nice knives, but it's well worth it. You only need one and it will last forever. And very soon after you start practicing and you learn how to use it, you will not be able to cut without it. I couldn't cut without my chef's knife. I mean, it's just fits my hand perfectly. It's very sharp. And I learned a few basic knife skills back when I took my class like years ago. And that's how I cut now. And you get like more proficient at it. You get faster. Not that you want to be fast, but it just, once you get faster, once you get more comfortable, you'll just naturally get faster at it because then things just go smoothly and go quicker. That's all. It's not a race. It's not a contest. You can cut the fastest. You don't even want to go fast. But I'm just saying you'll naturally cut faster because you'll know what you're doing and you're more comfortable with it. There's a special grip that we teach about in the Kickstart. It's called the claw. So one hand, you're holding your vegetable with the claw. So you will never cut your fingers off because you're holding it properly. And then you're holding your knife properly with the other hand, and it just flows. My mom, she's kind of stubborn when it comes to this. She cuts onions or whatever she's cutting the way she's cut them all her life. So I can't blame her, but she will hold an onion in one hand and cut towards her face with a tiny little knife. And I just don't know what is happening. I'm like, what are you doing, woman? That looks scary. She's like, I'm not going to change the way I cut now. She likes to cut that way. You may be, stuck to your ways too, and that's fine. But I would like you and her to try it this way because it's really makes your life a lot easier. You could cut, really quickly. The way we slice an onion is so easy with this chef's knife. There's just a few basic cuts to learn. One's the rocking motion and then the cross chop. And then there's other fancier cuts. Well, there's like dicing and mincing, julienne, matchstick, chiffonade, like the little ribbons we were talking about earlier. It sounds fancy. Chiffonade. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but that's just making the little ribbons. There's lots of different cuts, but there's just a few basic ones. And once you get them down, that's how you're going to cut with your big old chef's knife because it's the safest way to cut and it's the easiest and the quickest. So get a chef's knife. The paring knife is just the tiny little knives. It's like 3 or 4 inches long. That's when you want to do like intricate cutting, like maybe coring a little tiny jalapeno, or maybe if you want to peel the skin off of an apple, something like that. Serrated knives are for cutting bread and tomatoes because it's really hard to slice a tomato with a regular knife unless it's super duper sharp, but that skin is hard to cut through. So serrated knives are really great. for those and bread. So all you need are 3 knives, chef's knife, paring knife, and a serrated knife. That's it. And the other thing I want to make sure everybody does is have a stable cutting board, because I've done this 1,000 times. My cutting board slips. Wobbly cutting boards cause injuries. And the trick we have is to, if you have one that moves around, put a damp paper towel underneath it. That will keep it nice and secure and stable. Because the last thing you want to do is chase your cutting board around your counter, because you are like probably going to get cut, and you do not want to get cut. So make sure your cutting board is nice and stable. All right. So basically, those are all of our tips and tricks. I'm sure there's a lot more. We'll do another episode once we come up with some more for you. Hopefully, those are some good ones that you'll keep in mind when you're cooking. This way of cooking does not have to be hard, but there is a lot of cooking, like we said earlier. We cook all of our own food. We cook all of our own components. So let's just make it easier on ourselves with these tips and tricks. We'll have some more down the line. We'll keep them coming. So keep listening for more. We're going to do another episode on tips and tricks. Let's use these tips and tricks to make cooking fun and easy, so we all keep doing it. That's the idea.
And for more fun and interaction, make sure you check out our Facebook group as well. We're there answering questions and interacting with everybody every day. You can follow us on our social media. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. We put one out every week. Hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.